This quaint little plantation town has become a hot destination spot for tourists, but its haunted history still remains. Today, Hawaii's most haunted visits, Koloa. Beyond the cool waters and trade winds of our idealistic paradise is the thin veil which separates our world from the place where the shadows talk back. Welcome to Hawaii's most haunted. Headed towards the southern shore, we take the scenic route through the famous tree tunnel on Maluhia Road. Aptly named, the tree tunnel is made up of hundreds of fragrant, century-old eucalyptus trees planted along nearly a mile of roadway, whose branches seem to reach across the road, creating a beautiful tunnel of shade and foliage. Many late-night travelers claim that the tree tunnel is haunted. One night, four brothers were driving back to Lehue after spending a day in Koloa town. The oldest was driving their mother's new truck, and as they rounded out the end of the S-curves, the truck started to sputter and lose power. The oldest brother continued to drive, hoping to make it out of the tree tunnel before the truck died altogether, but to no avail. This truck, that hadn't had any problems before, stopped in the middle of the road, in the middle of that long stretch of trees. Maluhia Road has a very slight incline, so one cannot see the end or the cars coming toward you until you make it to the top of that incline. A little freaked out, the young man saw the yellowish shine of lights on the tree canopy up ahead, indicating that a car was coming towards them. As the light grew brighter, they expected to see the vehicle and its headlights come over the incline any second. Suddenly, the light vanished. Surprised, the brothers waited a few seconds, but no car came towards them. Completely freaked out now, the eldest young man tried to start the truck, and the engine turned over on the first crank, as if it never died out in the first place. He raced to the end of the tunnel as fast as he dared. None of the young boys have any explanation for what happened. The mechanics at the local shop saw nothing in their diagnostics, and there was no indication of anything that would make the truck die out. As for the strange light that just vanished, some have said it was Pele. Others say it could have been the Nightmarchers and some unseen force causing the vehicle to stop so as not to encounter the ghostly procession. We'll probably never know. Away from the bustle of town, a wide white strip of beach called Mahaulepu is an important site in Hawaii's history and culture. Against the backdrop of tide pools, lava tubes, and sand dunes lie important ecological, geographical, and historical finds, including petroglyphs, native plants, and fossils of endemic fauna. Mahaulepu is also a popular spot for shore fishing, with people camping overnight in hopes of catching a prized ulua. There are superstitions and precautions that every fisherman heeds. Some are obviously for safety, and some are to guarantee a good catch. Among these precautions are instructions to never sleep on the trail that runs to and from the shore. Some say it's because it's bad luck, while others say that it's just a common custom that everyone follows. A young man who had planned a weekend stay arrived at the fishing area after working all day. He passed the time catching smaller fish for bait and sliding them down the long lines planted as close to the offshore channel as possible. With a final check of his lines and bells, he decided to settle in and sleep for a bit. The young man, who was too tired to clear out a space to lay his sleeping bag, decided that the superstition was just that, and curled up in his sleeping bag right in the middle of the flat trail to catch a late night nap. He woke up to a nightmare just before dawn and felt aching pains through his body. When the sun finally rose, the young man saw that he had what looked like human bite marks all over his body, even in the most sensitive areas. The older Hawaiians told him that he was sleeping on the path used by the Nightmarchers, and this was the reason why They said one should never sleep on the trails at Mahaulepu. The young man swore he'd never fish overnight there again. According to the Smithsonian Magazine, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, significant ideas about the human body were hotly contested, and scientists looked to human remains for evidence to support theories that racial attributes could be measured and ranked on a grand scale of humankind. Medical doctors, anthropologists, and other scientists came to believe that perceived behavioral attributes of different people, such as intelligence and industriousness, could be directly correlated with physical characteristics, such as the size and shape of a skull. During that time, museums rushed to fill their rooms with native bones, many even paying collectors for the bones they found. For a span of decades, gathering human skeletal remains was a common intellectual, cultural, and social pursuit. Bones were often sent to museums unsolicited, while others were gathered with more systematic intent, carefully removed from cemeteries or other archaeological sites. The attempts to draw important ideas from their study eventually developed into an outright competition to fill bone rooms with rare specimens. It is said that Waldemar Knudsen wished to send a box of Hawaiian skulls and bones to the Smithsonian. He first attempted to pick these bones from burial sites at Mana, but was turned away by the Hawaiians who lived there and cared for their ancestral remains. Knudsen said that the Hawaiians told him to take the bones from Mahaulepu, for those bones are not their own. Those warriors had fallen in battle, and they have no care for them. As it turned out, the Hawaiians were right. The sands at Mahaulepu were white with bones scattered across the beach. Skulls were plentiful, sticking out of the sand anywhere one looked, and just dusting away a few inches of sand revealed more. There are a few theories as to whom the bones belonged. Some, even Waldemar Knudsen, said they were told that the bones were those of Kamehameha's warriors after a failed attempt to conquer Kauai. Others, like John Lidgate and John Stokes, say that the timeline of this claim did not match historical facts and claim that the area was an old Hawaiian burial ground. Historian Samuel Kamakau demonstrated that Kamehameha's invasion fleet was, in fact, wrecked by a storm. Either way, by 1926, a few fragments of bones remained scattered across the sand, skulls and large bones now vacant. The bones of our ancestors, our iwi kupuna, were now in the hands of museums and private collectors. Just west of Koloa Landing, a small embattled hotel sat along the shore. The hotel was built by mainland contractors in the late 50s or early 60s. During its 20-something years of existence, the property had many owners and many names, but it started out as the Halenani. Many locals believe the hotel was doomed from the start. It was built on the floodplain of Waikomo Stream. During heavy rains, the lobby often flooded. Perched atop the rocky point, there were no reefs to protect it, so it was exposed to the ravages of the frequent high surf. Waves battered the foundation and crashed over the seawall, flooding the pool and the first floor rooms. Rough and stormy seas tossed rocks through the windows. But aside from all that, most people think the hotel's bad luck came from the sand that was used for the hotel's concrete. During the hotel's construction, a Kauai Community College anthropology instructor was called to the Halenani. He was led to a dark room where two large plywood boxes sat. When he looked inside, he said they were filled with skeletons. The archaeologists discovered that bones were mixed in with the truckloads of sand. From the Keoneloa sand dunes, the sand had been sifted at the hotel site, and the largest bones were removed and thrown into boxes. The man told the contractor that his concrete was filled with pieces of human bones. There were bone chips, bits of figure bones, and toe bones, and small pieces that fell through the sifter with the sand. All the tiny bones were missing from the boxes. When the contractor asked what should be done, the archaeologist told him to rebury the skeletons in the original resting place at Mahaulepu, but no one knows if the bones were ever returned. Some people think the bones were thrown into the sea, but local fishermen and divers would likely have noticed. There were no reports of anyone finding loose bones in the sea. Others believed that the bones were mixed into the cement as Hawaiians, offended at the desecration, walked off the job while placing curses on their fellow workers. Many claimed that things would disappear out of rooms and then reappear in the same place a few days later. Lots of injuries happened on the property. Brand new electronic cash registers broke down. Reports about night maids and kitchen workers seeing ghosts persisted. A blessing for the opening of the new restaurant and disco within the hotel was performed. An offering of food and vodka was placed in the storeroom, and workers were warned that the offering should never be touched or moved. It seemed to work, as nothing untoward happened for quite some time. That is, until one day, when the chef decided that enough was enough and threw the offering away. An hour and a half later, the oven blew up in the face of the cook, who tried to light it, causing serious burns. That same night, a waitress slipped on the floor and was knocked unconscious. After battling the elements and the apparent supernatural for decades, the hotel faced the full force of Hurricane Eva's fury, and on November 1982, it finally lost its fight. The sea claimed a good part of the foundation, as pieces of the seaside pool ended up on the second and third floors of the hotel. Faulty design, angry spirits, the mana of Iwi Kupuna. Who knows?